Welcome everybody to Bugbears and Brews. My name's Brian, and today we're going to do Encounter recap. This is going to be session number 4 of our Storm King Thunder's campaign. So I was really surprised with this section here, this encounter that we did. You guys went and wanted to play in the town that we went to, which really made me happy that, hey, we're doing stuff I didn't plan for. So a lot of this was thinking on my toes, so I apologize for that. If anything came off as, not quite well put together. I wasn't expecting you guys to hang out in the town, but you did, so not a big deal. So Amphail, I described it as kind of like an Aspen resorty town for nobles, and there's two classes. You have the visiting nobles and like the nobles that stay there, and then you have everybody else. Vander was not impressed with any of the nobles. He was calling them like new blood and new money and fake nobles and that kind of stuff there, and all in all, Amphail is below him. The town, though, was in the middle of prepping for a big festival. Doing some research there, you guys found that the session or the festival that's going to be taking place over the next day or two here is a rich noble's birthday party. So the town's setting up the party for it, and there's some ongoing like people playing up steeringers, people cleaning the streets. Any sign of homeless people being shoved aside and made to not look homeless or out of town. Who knows what's going on with that? And it didn't take you long to figure that, what's going on with that there. And then you guys went and first you took care of like, hey, let's get our sleeping arrangements taken care of. Vander went to the hoity-toityest place around. Leovorl and most of the others went to what would be a upper class place at most towns. However, in this place it was like the medium to medium low. And then Navarra, I should say Navarra is Trevor's character. He's finally able to join us again now that the holidays have died down and his work schedule is not as crazy. So he is a wood elf, I believe. Wood elf ranger using the new ranger class. The hunter path though, I believe. Not the beast conclave, the other one though. She went and found a common room that lets you just pass out wherever for 5 copper. So that's what she signed up for. She said, you know what, as long as I have a roof over my head, I'm okay there. After establishing where everybody's sleeping, Pavic said, you know what, time to go ahead and get my my followerness on. So he went out to the center of the town square to try to start preaching, and got about 3 lines in before some tight pinched asshole guy came running over saying, hey, you can't preach without a permit. And Pavic thought he was joking, but after threats of having him fined for not preaching or for preaching without the permit, the guy kindly pointed Pavic to where the like DMV or Secretary of State office where he can get the permit. And we'll pick back up on that here in a little bit. So Pavic started off on that adventure. Vander was just kind of hanging out, enjoying his high-end place, getting massages and eating nice food and all sorts of amenities that came with that. And then Leovorl, Tundrin, Gramak, and Naivara went to a little hole-in-the-wall dive bar to get some drinks. Naivara went ahead and did some teetotaling instead of drinking. And Leovorl was like, he knew something was going on, that these that the laborers that were hanging up everything in town for the party, they were planning something, but he wasn't quite sure what was going on. And doing some investigation inside the bar, maybe sliding some people some drinks and sweet talking a couple others, he found out that the most of the male population was planning on making the pastries extra creamy, if you get what I'm saying. And they were going to get help with Old Sally. Old Sally across the street was going to help, and so they were going to pay Old Sally to do this, to produce stuff, help the guys, get off, and then they were going to go ahead and sneak the extra stuff into the pastries. You guys wanted to know part of that, but you did mentally note, don't eat the pastries. And we'll come back, that's going to play into it here a little bit later. And then back over to Pavic. Pavik was, we picked up where Pavik is in the Secretary of State type thing. It's like the Secretary of State, but with downers. Really, really slow. Somebody, kind of drew a good conclusion, like, hey, it's like Zootopia the Sloth working at the front desk. That's pretty much what it was. He had 3 people ahead of him, and he did not like that, so he started making death threats to the people ahead of him, saying, hey, if you don't get out of line, I'm going to kill you. I don't know if those were exact words, but something about not getting out of line and then I'm going to kill you came into play there. It worked on the one guy that he did actually threaten, and then he left, and then Pavik decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and wait out the rest of the time. It took about another hour and a half, 2 hours to go through the line. And when it did get up to him, he did buy a 1-day peaching permit that lasted for the day and then into the next day there. So it was like remainder of the day and then into like the next day there. So like a 24-hour permit. And the lady processed his stuff really, really quick. And it turned out when Pavik got outside, the guards were out there waiting to arrest him for threats to do bodily harm, I believe was the charge that we came up with. Pavik thought it was a joke and did not want to go. And then eventually when he decided he wanted to go, he wasn't going to go in handcuffs, and that wasn't going to fly with the guards, especially having this, Goliath, who they're not really familiar with, looks to them to be like some sort of small giant, being a real stick in the mud. So the guards attempted to put the handcuffs on initially, and Pavik decided to discharge a little bit of electricity. And that led to resisting arrest charges. And the guards shouting, stop resisting, even though Pavik clearly wasn't resisting besides this magical energy going on. The guards then also did kneecap Pavik a couple times with the cudgel, and eventually Pavik went on voluntarily post resisting arrest. Man, my nose is, sorry. Oh, sorry, we'll maybe cut that out. Looking here, so Leo Vorel and drinking crew were able to see Pavik get marched down to the jail, and then Vander could see it as well, because Vander's room overlooked the courtyard or the town square area. So Vander said, you know what, I guess it's time I got to get up there and do something. He went down to the courthouse, found the DA, pulled some cards and started talking with the DA, and the DA ran down a list of the charges, and here's what I could remember. Threats to do bodily harm, resisting arrest, preaching without a permit, being too tall for a civic building, arrest or assault against an officer, and then there was quite a few other purely trumped up charges. And Vander's like, we can't deal with this. We got to get going. We have a child to go save. We can't be messing with this. What can we do to get these charges dropped? And the DA said, well, there's 2 things you can do. For most of the charges, we can go ahead and we know the labor's up to something. If you can let us know what the labor's planning in order to get back at us, or, try to, what's the term I'm looking for? Try to ruin the party for us, let us know, and that'll take care of most of the minor charges. However, the upper charges, there was an explosion off to the northwest of town a day or 2 ago that they didn't have time to investigate because of this party in trying to clean up the rabble and that kind of stuff. So if you go and you check that out, we'll let him free of charges. They did agree that they would allow Pavik out to your guys' custody as long as you agreed to leave your goods and breeches there with them as collateral. You guys agreed to that. Didn't take long for Vander to reach out and find Leo Vorel, and Leo Vorel was like, I know what's going on with the labor. You guys went back and told the DA about that little thing going on there. And they quickly went out and arrested everybody at that dive bar that was associated with that plan. And then that brought in a slew of people into the holding cell that Pavik was in. And Pavik, having them all in a confined place, having his permit still technically legal, he went and started preaching to all of these prisoners and got his convert. Yay! Only one of the converts, because he didn't have a really good preaching role. And however, he didn't really get to go into much detail about what this god Torm could do for this convert, though, because right as the guy's like, you know what, I like this Torm guy, I like your the cut of your jacket. Let's talk a little bit longer. Pavic got pulled out because he was sprung by the party. So that kind of led to a little bit of upset, Pavic going on there. I will also mention that Tundran had no issue with Pavic being in jail. Who would have guessed? That was, nice and fun to see with that. Let's see here. From there, Grimlock went ahead and tried to find out where they were keeping Britches and the goods, just in case you guys had to spring out of town for some reason without completing your guys' quests. However, he wasn't able to do it. He had a basic idea where they might be keeping it, but doesn't know for sure. And then Vander, before you guys turned in for the night, he went and had his high-class escort that came with his room and found out that there's a second plot that he has not told the town about, which is all the high-class escorts purposely got crabs, and they're going to give crabs to the nobles at the party. Vander, seeing this as an opportunity, went and bought all the closest thing to a crab's cure-all powder type deal that he could find in the town to later sell back to the town. So that'll be fun to see how that plays out. The next morning, you guys went on the trail to find out a bit about this explosion. The explosion, or following the trail, you could tell it was clearly made by some sort of small humanoid wearing shoes, and you didn't have much issue following it. It kind of bordered between the mountain there, I think is the Sword Mountains, and then the forest that goes along with it is kind of running along between those two, where they meet. And a couple miles down the way, you guys found the explosion site, the site of the explosion, and there was a nice big dark burn spot along with all sorts of shrapnel laying around where whatever exploded. Some trees were knocked over, rocks were all over the place, and then there was a body imprint of a small body, so presumably whoever made the path on the way out there. You guys took a look around and saw that bigger feet came up to that body print and decided, hey, we're going to take this body, and left with it. You're guessing there's no connection because you didn't see the prints leading up with it. It just came down to the body print and onward. Following that, you guys found a group of ogres and orcs. The ogres went down pretty easily. I don't think I really hit with the ogres. And then you guys dropped them, I think, in a round, not 2 or 3 rounds. But like I said, they went down really quick from what I recall. For them having 70 hit points, yeah, there's your meta info. They went down really, really quick. And then as they were dying, though, they started running away and saying, I'm not living, or I'm not going to make it. I'm going to let everybody else know what's going on. You guys killed them as they just were starting to shout. They dropped to the ground, and you guys dropped with them to kind of hide. However, Pavic's big old butt was sticking up in the air, and the orcs saw it. Sadly, though, the orcs were not just plain orcs, they were orogs. And they were much harder to hit than you would expected. They were wearing some sort of slate rock armor. And one of them didn't know its ass from its elbow, couldn't hit worth a damn. The other one, though, went in like a madman and just one-shotted Grimlock right off the bat. And would have one-shotted Nivara, too, except for I accidentally skipped Grimlock's turn, because I forgot that Grimlock is a half-orc, and half-orcs have that lovely, once a day, if they're reduced to 0, they can instead be reduced to 1 hit point. So I accidentally skipped it, so we did a little bit of retro, retcon there, and, annihilated the one guy before he could make that second instant kill. So normally I don't like doing that, however, it's a mistake on my end, so I will gladly own up to it and go back and replay it there. There was a rest before you guys went into a cave that the orcs or the orogs and the ogres were guarding. Shortly into that rest, sorry, some shouts came from the cave, clearly an orc. Luckily, you guys have some people that speak orc. There's a bit of back and forth, and the issue was that this gnome blew up part of this these orcs' territory, and they wanted to eat this gnome. So that gave you, you guys did confirm that the gnome was alive, and then you weren't quite sure whether you should just leave them and let the orcs eat them, but the goodness in your heart said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and free that gnome. The battle inside the cave wasn't as deadly as I was hoping. I was expecting it to be a bit harder. You guys focus fired the shaman down pretty quickly, so I think that really helped negate some of the troubles that I was expecting you guys to have there, and I didn't get to do as much crowd control with the shaman as I was hoping. And so I was like really expecting a much more in-depth tactical battle. I think part of it also, it was at the end of the night and I was trying to get through that combat, so I think part of that is on me, but I don't think I cut any corners because of time. I know I was being hasty and I was making sure, you know, we were moving quick, but I don't think corners were cut. I think you guys just, you know, played up my battle far better than I planned. Wrapping up, you guys did not free the gnome. The gnome is still on its spit over fire. I think you guys did remove the gnome from the fire. The gnome has its mouth gagged and its hands bind in some sort of viscous fluid, so it can't even like use its fingers or anything like that. It's just completely like clustered like that. And you guys decided you're going to go ahead and take your long rest before you talk to this gnome and figure out what's going on. It caused some trouble, so the least it can do is wait for a couple hours before you guys do what you need to do, right? And that's what we're going to pick up next week. So think about what kind of things you want to have, you know, speak to the gnome about. Other housekeeping things. Have a character prepared for level 4. Think about, like I said, what kind of things you want to have for the gnome. Please use your damn inspiration. I've been handing it out, or I've been attempting to hand it out, but you guys still have not really used it. I will say, if you don't have inspiration, or you didn't have inspiration last session, go ahead and give yourselves inspiration. So everybody should start next week with inspiration, because I think everybody did some really good role play in town there and really took me through some turns I wasn't expecting. But please use it, because I just keep on giving out and you're like, oh, I already have it. So you can't have more than one. So sorry guys, I know this went a little bit longer than I was hoping, but you guys did a lot in that town and I had once again a lot to cover for having just a 3-hour game there. So I will see you guys Wednesday. Take care. Bye guys.